Welcome, everyone. It is 5:39 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council Youth and Outreach Meeting. This is a committee. This is a special meeting with our regular attendees. And so, as per usual, let us go ahead and take roll. I know that, wait a minute, who's not here? I see almost everybody. Oh, okay. So I believe, well, I knew that she was going to be out in advance, so we're going to consider Angela Sumner to be excused. But other than that, I'll just call the names that I see. John Barbera.
Here.
Thomas Norman. Alec Norman.
Present.
Here.
Kelly Miller.
Here.
Lori Jacobs.
Here.
And Adrianita Reyes Cruz.
Here.
All right. Well, we have almost a full crew. So, now back to managing my windows and tabs. There we are. Good. Okay. First order of business after welcome introductions, our roles taken. We would like to invite and entertain public comment on non-agenda items. I see we have a hand raised from attendees. And Sterlina Cerritos, go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council members and community members. This is Sterlina Cerritos. I'm the Public Relations Director for West Cal Academy. We're a 501c3 nonprofit community-based organization that specializes in personalized career mentoring for people of all ages with a focus on at-promise youth, formerly known as at-risk youth. We're headquartered in Torrance, California, and we have a satellite office in San Pedro on 6th Street. We are happy to invite the community and you all to our free West Cal Career Pathway Workshop event on Thursday, June 30th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. This free event will take place at the historical arcade building across from the Warner Grand Theater. The address is 479 West 6th Street, San Pedro, California, 90731. And we're thankful that this event is sponsored by the Central San Pedro Neighborhood Council. We're going to be promoting careers in the maritime industry, and we're going to be having speakers engaging with the attendees regarding career opportunities in the maritime industry. There will be free snacks and refreshments. More information can be found on our website, westcalacademy.com, as well as the social media channels. RSVP is strongly encouraged. Our Eventbrite is also found on our social media channels. You can check it out on our Instagram, as well as pinned first post on our Facebook page. For any questions or comments, you guys can email westcal at info@westcalacademy.com or call our office number at 310-849-8614. You could also just look us up on Google and you will easily find our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to look that up and attend. I got to double check my calendar, but we appreciate that you're engaging like this, and it's obviously a valuable service to the community. So thanks again for offering that.
No problem. Thank you.
Very well. Go ahead, John.
Just to give you guys an FYI on tomorrow's issues meeting, I got April Jones will be there. Apparently the skate park looks like they're in the final stages. There have been some people skating, but what they're doing is now they're going to wait. They need to get the okay that everything is good and release that all the safeties and all that have been implemented, and they're going to be finishing off some new, more graphic designs and everything. So they're looking at maybe end of July, beginning of August. They should, hopefully they'll, like I said, they'll come down and give them their blessing that everything looks good. They've had some of the kids there right now that have been testing it and looking at it. So they've just got a few more beautifications to finish up. And like I said, hopefully by the end of July, that's what they'd like. Be first week of August, they'll be fully open. So that's it.
Great. That is very encouraging. I actually swung by myself just kind of out of curiosity, and there were a few people. There were people working, doing some kind of finishing work, and a couple of people skating. So I think people are, it's funny because you have Peck Park and other places, but it's kind of like a basketball hoop or a tennis court. There will always be, somebody who wants to use it, and they'll have to wait while others are already there. So I think it'll be very, very well received. And I'm looking forward to kind of promoting that.
Yeah, I talked to a couple of kids, and you know what their answer was? There's shade.
Yeah, that's
That's
now,
what they
and I
said.
think possibly until the end of time. I think shade, especially in the summer, is going to be a critical issue. It's not going to be
Yeah,
much worth doing if you can't stay out of the sun. It's 87 at my front porch right now, so every degree counts.
Yep.
All right, so do we have any other comments on non-agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, which is debrief and discussion on our Bogdanovich movie event, which I want to just say was an unqualified success. I think it was fun. It was nice weather, obviously good movie. And it seemed like everybody had a great time. I was really pleased with the turnout, and I think it does what we intend in terms of just a positive impression on the community, taking full advantage of all these facilities we have, but getting neighborhood council on the radar and just kind of creating a positive impression of that whole thing, so that when we need to ask for something later, when we want to engage in some other way, hopefully more people will be familiar, and they will be more positive in their kind of initial reaction, as opposed to who are you guys and what do you do. So.
well, we did have a great turnout. We had 180 bags of the little cone shaped popcorn that we got at Costco, and it was all gone. We figured that there was some 205, 210 people showed up, one of the best times. And then we received, and I sort of forgot now, but I know we got somewhere between 165 and 175 socks.
Oh,
Pairs of socks. Yeah, it was amazing, So it really, Tim McCosker was there with his wife, Connie. They sat in, walked around, sat in for a while. It really was a great turnout. I mean, people were coming from all over. They saw, somebody hooked up flyers over at Point Furman. As they were running and jogging in the morning, they saw it, ripped it down, and came with it and showed us, and people that were at the park that had been there most of the day, they go, what's happening? I said, well, it's a free movie from your neighborhood, Northwest Neighborhood Council. And they go, oh, can we come back? I said, sure you can. So they went home, did what they did, and came back, brought the kids blankets, and it was really good. It was really a real fun turnout. And once again, it went off really good. I would have liked to see more of our council people there.
Well, I mean, we obviously want, well, I'm glad that we had the amount of participation we needed to pull everything off. And, special thanks, especially to you, John, and to Angela for doing literally a lot of the heavy lifting, Melanie as well. I would like for the things that we do as youth and outreach in particular to be kind of inspiring and compelling, that when people, especially our board members and other committee members, see these things as successful, it encourages them to participate, like, that it's, if only for their own selfish motives, to be associated with something positive and successful. And so I think it's worth it for us to build these things up, and to promote them, so that they kind of hopefully their gravity kind of increases. But on that, I saw, I remember, and I want to say again, thanks again to everybody who got the word out. I was randomly down at Crazy Fish on 7th Street, and I saw a flyer in the window, and it didn't occur to me that someone would have gone by there, but, we did a good job with that kind of coverage. So I think this is it's a good step. And again, it's important for this event, but it's important that it's something that our neighborhood council does, that, our outreach and our attitude towards the stakeholders is one where we are, reminding them that we know that they're there, and you have to maintain a profile, and you have to show your work, And so that I think this, is good. We obviously haven't had the opportunity to do some of the larger, more impactful things, but I think, with neighborhood purpose grants, with things like this, as long as we make sure that the story gets told and keep looking for opportunities to engage like that, it'll be good for our brand, it'll be good for the community, and it'll inspire people, I think, who want to come and participate. Like, seeing other people succeed and stuff like that, I think is a great recruitment tool as well. Like, for me, the sort of political and functional sustainability is about doing things that are so cool that other people, go, oh, this would be worth my time. I want to, if they just see us arguing and jabbing at each other, there's not too many people who would, let's put it this way, anybody who wants to be part of that is probably going to make it worse. So we, want to be positive and forward facing and, inspire people who want to do the same stuff.
Chris, this is Lori. I'm driving on the freeway, so I don't have the ability to raise my hand.
Okay,
Can I add a few things there?
sure.
Okay, so obviously great job. Future, when we need a little more time getting those flyers out, and also notifying Josh Stecker, because he's got a calendar in the San Pedro today. That's just, he might charge like $20 or something to list it there. You don't have to run an ad, but just to list it as an upcoming event is good publicity. Two, John said something interesting, that some people took down the flyer. That's weird. Do we need to have little tabs on them? Like when people say, job opening where there's little tabs and you could tear them off. I don't know. I've never heard of anybody taking down the flyer. So that was something else. There were actually 155 pairs of socks. And in all honesty, there were probably about 15 or 20 pairs that I left in there from the Girl Scouts collection. But I wanted you to know I took it to Harbor Interfaith. Didn't even think about doing a photo op, sorry. But they were very appreciative. But more importantly, they said, why didn't you bring flyers here? So for future, we need to add that as another source. They were very interested in passing that out to their families that are part of the program. And lastly, we need to get after the event publicity too. So I know Angela took some pictures, John did, Chris. So we should put a little story together showing, that we did we helped out with the sock drive, how many people had a good time, this is what your council's doing. And most importantly, we kind of missed the boat on this. We should have had a flyer on the neighborhood council. We used to have a brochure, and because everything was done so last minute, we didn't have time to update the brochure. Having a brochure to hand out to recruit people, tell them about the committees, the meetings, that has to be a must for all future events and tabling. So somebody needs to take that on. All in all, this isn't a complaint. This is supposed to be just how we could learn and do even better. Although I don't think the park can handle too many more people than over 200. And that is the absolute best attendance we've ever had for a movie event. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think you're right. One thing I remember talking about last month or maybe the month before was about coming up with a manual so that we don't have to remember these things like San Pedro Today or the Assistance League, or the Harbor Interfaith, so that, whoever picks these things up can see kind of what our track record has been and what the SOP is for these things that, just because that's our, I guess, institutional culture, that these lessons that we learn as to what, what works, that we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we do one of these things.
And I probably have a checklist somewhere, Chris.
Yeah.
But I wasn't as involved, and because the flyers were out so late and stuff, some things just got missed. Doesn't matter. We still had great turnout. Yeah. But I'll try to dig up that checklist and work with John and Angela on that.
Yeah, and I think, obviously with the social media around this, the engagement was a lot higher for these things. It's hard to tell. One of the things I want to look at going forward is, I think we need to have an ongoing discussion about the way there are publications, because I think this did well because of word of mouth, because the social media had some traction, but in terms of what our best practices are, knowing which way to go. It's like, if it were, the timing were right, maybe this is something we would have put into a newsletter, but again, we need to have regular outgoing communications that are more regular, that are more frequent than a newsletter would allow us to be. So
Chris, you benefited from people absolutely being hungry for an in-person event.
Yeah.
And we were kind of one of the first ones. There were several other movie nights happening. So moving forward, like people were talking about a Halloween one. Well, you're going to be competing with a lot of Halloween movie nights. So, picking the right date and knowing what else is going on. So one of the SOPs, as you mentioned, is to have somebody be in charge of tracking what other events are happening in the community, putting a calendar together. Okay, the chamber is doing this, the CD15 is doing that, and other neighborhood councils, so that you ahead of time, you can try and snag dates that won't be competing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I will tell you this. I talked to Christina the other day. I went by to pick something up, and Wilmington had the same thing, if you remember seeing that. Well, Christina said they got 90 people to show up at the park, and they were saying that they were happy with that. So, and they had months that they were doing that too.
Well, I mean,
out there.
We do have the advantage of Bogdanovich being a particularly attractive location. I mean, that, that's clearly, we had people who were already there anyway, who came back for the event. So that's just good luck for us.
Yeah, and Selena put out a lot of stuff for us. I mean, she hit it, but I think Angela and her girls went out and did a lot of the, like you said, Crazy Fish and all. They went driving around and posting everywhere, which helped. Like I said, there were about 2-3 people. You remember the one guy that came up and showed the piece of paper? He pulled it out of his pocket. I don't know if you're standing there, and he was showing it. Yeah, he goes, yeah, I just got this, 4 hours ago, and it was like, wow, so it did work. We had even a few people. We thought that the sign wasn't going to work where it was at, but the guy says, hey, we saw the sign, yesterday, and we noticed that you're doing a movie in the park. So I go, well, how did you know about it? And he goes, well, I saw the post, the banner on the fence over there on the corner of 9th Street. I go, fantastic. So, people, I think a little bit of everything. I posted it all over San Pedro, CA, love San Pedro. Let's have fun in San Pedro, scenic San Pedro. I had it posted in all of the, as much as I could. And considering we had good hits.
Yeah. Considering it was a graduation weekend too, like we had graduations. So
I know you
considering there were so many graduation parties and stuff too, that, maybe next time we need to look at that too, because I felt bad because my whole family would have went, and I felt bad, but we were all at a graduation party. So, hopefully we can think about that next time too, because that was, conflicting with it. But I really wanted to go. I know Lamita does it. And at their library,
yes,
and I just saw the sign for it. It's so much fun, and I know there's another place that I can't think of the company, but they'll come and do it for you, and they bring their own food trucks, and they do an opening band, and I've been to see that at a couple different places, and it's a lot of fun.
I wonder,
we can partner with the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council and Central have indicated that they might be interested in doing a combined thing. So if we combine with them, it probably could be bigger with other things. We just need to know what capacity is for people at that park. I heard that Dean Dana said they want us to do it in the back of their park, and I don't know what capacity is there, but parking not so good.
The parking lot is good, but the park itself is gigantic. So I don't know, but maybe between the two, obviously the two pieces of land, but whatever. So,
hey, Lori, would Salinas let her? Go ahead.
Would you what?
Would Salinas let her use the auditorium?
You mean the gym?
The gym, I'm sorry, the gym. If we had like 250, 300.
Yeah, but it's not really the same atmosphere. And also, with COVID still kind of being around, the outdoor thing was pretty good. One thing, I think I talked to Yolanda Regalado at one point, that we could possibly get the San Pedro trolley and have people park in the dirt lot down below. Okay. And and have the trolley take them up. The only problem is, and John and I discussed this, and I don't know if you have it on your issues committee agenda. Okay, the two roads going in and out of there are really horrendous. And I'd love to see our neighborhood council do something to get them repaved and get those giant humps. I mean, those could damage some cars, especially the one going the back entrance.
And
to
Gene
La Toma.
Dana, yeah, this is really
Yeah.
bad, that road.
Yeah,
So
I think that approach road that's county property, and I believe I asked somebody about that a couple of years ago, and it's basically a budget thing. It's, you know, that there's a pot of money, and that's got to be like maybe we can talk to Supervisor Hahn's office about you know, through one of our field deputies to kind of.
Well, yeah, the county one, Dean Dana's county, and Bogdanovich is actually city, so that's Rec and Parks. The other one's Park and Recs. But I was thinking that might be something not necessarily for youth and outreach, but for the issues committee to dig into.
Yeah,
Is it
we
on
can
your
do that.
agenda? Did you put it on your agenda?
No, I didn't, but I'll have it where we do our any public comments.
And look what a good service project that would be for the community, for us to get those roads repaved. And if you want to involve Janice Hahn's office, if you want me, because, you know, I have pretty good connection with her and her people, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be, well, yeah, and again, because if you look at the official entrance or whatever, Bogdanovich is over on the South Shore side, and that one is the county signage. That's where the sheriff's deputies come to lock up. So I'm pretty sure that county public works would be responsible for that road. And I also assuming that it would be, you know, or it hasn't been done because it's very expensive. So it's a type of thing that we need to, I think we could have issues and youth and outreach try and drum up some public support, because I'm sure anybody who's been there, you know, knows that it's a problem as they try to come up.
That bump is almost a foot tall, Chris.
Yeah, well, and the fact that you have to steer around it to go into the oncoming lane or whatever, it's like, it's, you know, there's clearly a reason it hasn't been done. And I think if enough people highlight, you know, that there's potential safety issue or whatever, we might be able to get, I know the pot of money to fix those things exists, but it's always a matter of who's going to be complaining most loudly.
You know, if I could suggest, why don't you start with Selena and find out what she knows, because I'm sure she's tried to make an effort to get that fixed. So she might be the first point of contact to find out what's been done. Is there something in the works? That would be my suggestion.
That's what I was gonna do. Ask Selena and then talk to, what's her name?
At Dean Dana.
Yeah,
So
the
Chris,
new one.
do you want to, should we assign this to John Barbera, since he's part of the issues committee and he's got the connection, so he can report back?
John, if you want to do that, that would be helpful. Get the ball.
Is there any money involved?
Well, there's probably, I'm assuming
You didn't hear that, Thomas.
$1 million project,
Yeah.
but
Sure. No, I'll do that. Hey, Gwen's got her hand up too. She wanted to say something about the trolley.
Sure. Go ahead,
She's
Gwen.
in it.
Yeah, hi you guys. So back in the EcoFest and WildFest days, we were looking at this new, you remember that public safety one that got kiboshed by the pandemic? We were seeking out the trolley, and there were, the one complication with it, I don't know if the trolley has been improved or anything, but there were concerns about, first, the getting it up the hill, but also the parking down below. Are you talking about the dirt area where the fruit stand is?
Yeah, where the
Yeah,
strawberry.
That doesn't
Yeah.
really belong to this.
We had but we're trying to reach out to the owners and that kind of thing. So that does take a lot of pre-development with that, and yeah, getting Janice Hahn's office in it and Joe's office or whoever the new council person will be quite beneficial. And then
Just to let you know, Gwen, the trolleys are new. They're the new style trolley. That was we used one of them at the Christmas, and that thing's got power and everything.
Wonderful.
It's really good.
Wonderful. And then what Lori was saying, Lori, you are absolutely right about scheduling it for the right month. We always, that was always that point of discussion. For example, and first off, her name is Marlene. Marlene Yang is the person
Yeah.
over at Friendship Park. And if you want to, I'm actually going to be meeting with her pretty soon. So if you want anything to be discussed, just to get a heads up. They are actually scheduling an event in August because of those concerns. Going back to school is a problem. They wanted to get a jump on service and volunteer and try to promote their volunteering over there before the school year. But they knew with the September school year ramping up, and then October is just, and then from that point on, all the way through till Christmas. It's
LAUSD starts up on August 15th.
yeah, yes. And they're trying to schedule it prior to that. Yeah.
I would suggest we look at getting the roads fixed before we even go further on the trolley discussion.
I'll mention that. I'll mention that to her.
Okay, well, let's let John be the point person, Gwen, so we don't have too many hands in the
Oh
pot.
yeah. Absolutely. If you want
Yeah, I'll get with them. I'll talk to them, and we'll talk with Dan tomorrow in our meeting, and I'll have a discussion with him after that. Let him know.
And then hopefully, I know it's through you guys, I guess, but it's way too early. But hoping now, the public safety EcoFest Wildfest, it would have to be in a new venue. Dean Dana won't be able to do it, so I just want to keep that in you guys's like back pocket and kind of tucked back in your head, because I'd love to get that ramped up again.
All right.
We really need somebody else to run the event, and we just help there, but somebody else needs to run it, and we can be a sponsor.
Right. Absolutely. Right.
All right. Well, let's move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is a discussion with concepts for homeless outreach materials. And Lori, I know you if you emailed me or called, I do still want to talk to you about the ordinance, but yeah. So I guess we just want to start by brainstorming. Obviously, Lori, you'll have some good ideas right off the bat, but about the types of conversations, the types of messaging, and the channels we'd like to use for the conversation around homelessness, because it seems like, again, in the ways that people discuss these things casually, they will come up as a result of a complaint, or someone noticed there's an encampment, or there's an individual who does something that people take, issue with, and it always sort of comes up in a negative context. And so for me, my experience is that it's often a very reactive and almost overwhelmingly negative sort of discussion. And I'm wondering, since it's kind of our stated mission here at Youth and Outreach, if there's a way that we can talk about these things that keep them high profile, and make sure that, because this is just like the climate, just like the economy, this is a sort of a permanent and ongoing issue in the community. But I think that there should be better ways to talk about it than just getting mad because some guy did something weird and you didn't like it, or there's a pile of trash somewhere, because we all know that part. But I'm hoping that there's ways that we can maintain the importance of the conversation without just kind of beating the drum that we already know is there, in terms of we don't like the downside of this thing.
And Chris, I really appreciate that. And, through the homelessness liaison, I can only cover so much. Melanie did arrange for Officer Ike and City Attorney Jonathan Garza to be at last week's safety meeting. And they were able to articulate a lot of the 4118 guidelines in a much more educated, and it was a better explanation. As you know, I'm still not thrilled with the fact that Northwest is trying to call out more locations for 4118, mainly because I felt that the board didn't really have enough information and understanding of what that ordinance is. And so I think us looking at getting better informed, I'm still gathering information, talking to Harbor Interfaith. It's kind of evolving. So You know, what happens today, somebody puts something through and it changes. But I like where you're going with how can we be better educators on the issues? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Because again, there's, there's nothing special about offering your own, gripe or repeating the negative things that you've already heard people say. It's like, we don't have to, when it's hot outside, it's water cooler talk, whatever, to say it's hot, but like, well, our level of participation is supposed to be more than just, sounding off or observing. Like, we're supposed to be kind of helping to facilitate a conversation between local government and our stakeholders. And I think, when we have the opportunity, acting, as a source of information, because, root causes of homelessness and the broader issues that affect it, it's a complicated problem, and it's a huge problem. So, just talking about it in a small scale, I don't think is particularly useful or even really engaging. I mean, you can go on the San Pedro Facebook page and see people complaining about a particular element of the issue, and they don't like what they see and all that. But honestly, it doesn't make me, when I see those things, it doesn't make me think, oh, I need to read this and find out what's going on. It's like, okay, there's a thing in a place and they don't like it, and somebody should do something. It's like, if we can't move the ball forward, we should at least try and make this a three-dimensional issue.
Chris, my boss tasked me to update all the this versus fact and education that we have on homelessness for the South Bay cities. And I've been working on it for a month because there's so many things that keep changing. But one thing that I've added and I'm working on is a frequently asked questions. Okay, so that we can kind of hit those first. For instance, probably the most common question is, where the heck is my tax money going on Proposition H and Measure HHH? I see more homeless out there than ever, and I'm paying all this money. So that kind of thing, I'm working on answers, or, oh, they don't really want help, they're service resistant. Okay, well, that kind of thing, I'm thinking maybe I could do an abbreviated, not a full scale presentation, but get some updated information. But I think the key thing is, when you're going to talk about an ordinance like 4118 at the board meeting, we can't just have the safety committee presenting the information. We need some people like Officer Ike and, a representative from the council talking to us about it, so we can be really well informed and ask the questions and get the right answers.
I think you're right. And I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of when people hear a particular phrase like service resistant, or like
makes me
that,
shudder.
That has an emotional resonance to it. Like, if you're frustrated and if you're annoyed or if you're disgusted or you're whatever, and then somebody comes up with a single element of this huge issue that happens to vibe with the way you feel about it, that's the part you're going to zone in on. It's like, oh, they don't want help. That's like, well, there are people who don't want help, and there are people who don't trust service providers or whatever. But what people hear the part that matches their feelings, and then they tend not to listen to the other parts of it. So I think it's important for us to bring people in, like you mentioning Officer Ike, like a beat cop or a supervisor who knows what the nuts and bolts issues are dealing with. And so it's important to make sure that the other parts of the conversation are have their volume boosted as well, because those things that kind of match our feelings are the things we use as takeaways, but it's really not the whole thing. Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
One of the things I really want to, I think that we need, being that we're youth outreach, I'm really disappointed that LA Unified's not doing their feeding thing like they did last year, where they were passing out food and stuff. I really think we need to get out to the public, the places. We have a list of places where people can get food, but I think we really need to help some families get food, and really help families know that there are places to get food for kids, and that there are some childcare programs that are happening. Because I'm just so worried about these kids for 2 months not having steady meals. 2.5 months of no steady meals.
That's really important, Kelly. And what is it, like a year and a half ago, we did that whole newsletter issue on resources because of COVID, and food distribution and youth, places where they could be safe was a big part of it. As COVID has kind of died down, maybe we need to revisit that. And that takes a lot of work. to find out where all the food programs are, who's eligible, what the hours are. But I think that's definitely something we should be looking at for outreach. And just one other thing I want to point out, as the liaison, I'm supposed to just stick to the facts, ma'am, just the facts, not give opinions. However, at the board meeting, if they're discussing something later on, as a stakeholder, I'll make a comment. But I'm learning to just stick to the facts and the actual programs. But I think Kelly brings up a good point. And it's not just youth, it's families. I put out the information on eviction moratoriums, that type of thing. Maybe we need to look at scheduling in the next newsletter and putting all these things in there. Have we even talked about the target date for the next newsletter?
We have not. And Kelly, I think you're absolutely, and there, what you bringing that up, because I remember seeing the email from the district. I think that there's probably an opportunity now. Obviously, the way we spend money and what we have available to us would be limited in terms of us doing anything directly. But if there's an opportunity for us to help, at least in terms of the information, to fill in the gaps and help direct people who were counting on that, and then we're probably surprised that it wasn't going to continue, that I think that would be an opportunity for us to step into that breach and help direct people, send them to the right places to what services there still are.
Well, the sad thing is that we got the federal funding after school already was out. Like it was approved, but the school, and we have a new superintendent who's not as wanting to take care of kids as our previous one. So it's really hard because I know kids that depend on that. And I feel really bad for them. So I know I have I try to give it to families as I see them. I see a lot of, I live across the street from Leland. So I see a lot of kids here and I try to talk to the parents. But I kind of want to even have a big sign that can put, you can get food here, here, and here in my front lawn so families can see it. And if we could post those places for kids, people can see it.
I was going to say that if
that's a good idea.
You guys have those specific pieces of information. It doesn't have to be an awful lot of stuff, but it's like we kind of know what the issue is now. And if we have even limited pieces of information like that, I can at least turn that into social media stuff very quickly. So if you just email the kind of the bullet points of those things to me, okay, I can turn that into a little something at the very least and get it out there, because I know obviously people will be looking. And just like the movie in the park, it's like the person who sees it may not be the person it's directed to, but they may know the person it's directed to. Hopefully,
quite often, Chris, the people that need to know that information are not online. That's the same thing with those eviction flyers, Right. And we need to find out what the Boys and Girls Club's doing, because they had quite a few food distribution programs, and I don't know what they're doing now.
They did, and so did Toberman, and so did I can't think of the other organization that did. But everyone was giving it out food, and I think that it was in such an abundance, because I know women who would go and pick it up for families who didn't have transportation and deliver it. My daughter-in-law's mom delivered food to everybody in San Pedro that didn't have cars, but then all of a sudden it went to nothing, and then I don't know what opened back up. But I mean, I know we got a list of a few places, but I mean, even I want to know what it is so I can tell parents, because it's scary. It's really sad. I know kids that need that.
And
I'm willing to take on. Oh, go ahead, John.
So we could also, don't forget, we got Coastal and Central. We can get with them too. And the three of us, we could work together,
Yeah.
Well, I'm willing to take on that task of doing the research of the food programs that are out and about. And so start there and then share it with other groups. I mean,
Lori, who are the ones that are across the street from us on the Assistance League at the church? Is that Meals on Wheels?
That's Meals on Wheels. That's a different type program, and they're maxed out through COVID. And it's not just the prices of food have gone up. So some people who could afford food before can barely afford food now.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is bad. It's really bad.
Gwen, I see your hand up. Was it up from before? Did you have another?
No, it actually is up now for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kelly, I did find a grab and go list. It looks like, unfortunately, they only had it available a limited amount of schools during spring break. And Dana,
Right, we had it up until our new superintendent.
Yeah.
right. But I actually had my hand up for 4118, and I just wanted you to know, Lori, I've reached out and made inquiries about that. So it's not going to be as extensive as it seemed to be. I have gotten it on word from a representative over at Joe's office. I haven't been able to get a hold of Brian, but that the complete list of all the schools and parks, it's not going to be anywhere near all of that. It's only going to be a portion. And what that is going to be clarified at a future date, what the portion is. But there is no way they are going to 4118 all of those locations. So the city just won't be doing that. So
And it's just not a solution. You're just moving people around.
yeah. Well, with that, with that, my concern has been when you 4118 certain areas, it is going to move people around. And then what my panic has always been is that there is no safe parking. When you move people around, they're going to end up in places where they're going to hide, and be harder to find. But
There is a safe parking in San Pedro, and there's one in Torrance. And I believe that the county supervisors are putting some kind of motion through to try and make them 24 hours now, because that was part of the problem. People who worked at night. Yeah.
Wonderful.
But I mean, that hasn't happened yet, but it's in the works.
Oh, that's good. Lori, and also to your idea about talking about the unhoused in a better way, the vocabulary, like the unhoused, and what is there a way to educate people on?
It's on our website. There's actually a list of, it hasn't been updated in a long time, but there's a list of terminology and what they mean.
Yeah, but I mean, we could even do little factoids on our social media site or something.
I guess what is the goal of that, Gwen? Because as far as me on education, I want people when they're going to speak on something or before or against something to understand what the programs are actually doing, what the goal of them is. So terminology is nice, but I don't think that is as important as some of the bigger
No, you're
things.
right. You're right. But I would expect that all of
It's
us on the board,
interesting, and yeah,
I would expect all of us on the board would use the right vocabulary, no matter what our proclivities and opinions are. Some are reactionary and some are, we have these different ideas. But I would hope that we would use an appropriate vocabulary when discussing this, and discussing it in a more mature manner as well.
you're right. You don't call them homeless people. You call them people experiencing homelessness, because it's not a label.
Yeah,
Right.
I think one of the things it touches on is it just reminds me of the thing with the air quality monitoring, whereas when we take a task on either as a committee or as a neighborhood council, we as the board, we need to check ourselves in terms of our expertise and our authority on the matter. So for instance, not being a social worker, not being a professional in those things, I would hesitate to try and educate the public directly. That is, I wouldn't ask the board based on a more or less random assortment of skills and talent and experience to take on any particular task without somebody, like for instance, if we had a legal question in the past, we could have maybe referred to Braun. But I would, if we're going to do something like that, or when we act, let's say in an educational capacity, I think it's really important for us to refer to and liaise with actual experts, so that when we put something out like that, like for instance, Lori's ability to kind of advise us on what the state of the art is in the language is one thing, but like when we as a committee or as a board take that on, I think we need to be extra careful about, doing our homework and referring to established sources, because again, the model would be that whoever is on this committee in, 20 years time, shouldn't be making it up off the top of their head either. So I think it's important for us to establish a precedent of understanding.
Absolutely.
You know,
I agree totally. And also there's some people who, if I'm saying it, they're going to tune out.
yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So we all know who those people are, but regardless, I know people who could speak on housing. I know people who can speak on mental health. Okay. And talk about some of the barriers and how they're triaging people and things like that. So I, would welcome the opportunity, to have a speaker on one of those things, although those are kind of, nuanced. There's so many different factors,
But I think that goes to us, trying to raise the level of the conversation. It's like, if we have people come and present on anything and everything, and in as much as homelessness is a clear and present, issue, even a little bit of education is more than we would normally get. If somebody comes in and talks to us for 5 or 10 minutes on that issue, that raises the stakes for everybody. That's something that especially people on the board, but everybody can walk away with a better, at least some perspective that they didn't have before necessarily. Because again, it's very easy for us to all generate our opinions and feelings on these things. But, I think when we can have the opportunity for some real enrichment, if we have the opportunity to provide that, I think we should do that.
Well, Chris, as an executive board member, isn't there some interest in, when we're very overdue to have a retreat? Lori, I think that would be a wonderful time to discuss some of these issues and have the board attention. So maybe you guys can coordinate that.
We're not
we
allowed
can't
right
to
now
have a
to have
retreat.
we can't do an in-person retreat yet.
Yeah, I spoke to
The Department of Neighborhood Empowerment has put the kibosh on that.
I spoke to Ray about it kind of in the conceptual sense, but the problem is that we do not have a plan going forward for anything other than Zoom right now. So it's
Well,
limited.
there's another neighborhood council who tried to put it through and is getting shut down.
Yeah, it only makes sense to me.
That's unfortunate.
I'm assuming that Dunn is being extremely conservative, and I welcome the fact that they're not kind of just pushing forward like everybody else, but it means that we have to wait even longer.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the thing is, like Lori said, well, one of the things we got to do, I overheard some people, we were talking over this weekend, and I met with a couple of guys, and these are stakeholders and non-stakeholders and whatever you want to call them. They got in their head that all homeless people are drug addicts. They're mental, and that's not true. I mean, Lori, what's the percentage out of the homeless people? 5%?
The statistics vary. Right now, they're saying about 30% of people experiencing homelessness have some type of mental health issue. And then it goes up from there when you add substance abuse. The thing is a lot of people didn't have these issues when they became
started.
homeless,
Thank you.
but as a survival mechanism,
Yes.
and dealers prey on them too. So we're waiting to get the statistics on the homeless count, which are due any day now. They're very late in getting those to us.
And a lot of them do want the help. They do want help. And it's just frustrating when you hear,
Even lady that Melanie talked about, okay, that was in front of Target. Okay,
right.
I talked to the outreach team that's working with her. The woman wants off the street. Okay, but there's issues that she had that kept her from accepting shelter, but people don't understand this. She does have some issues. You can't just declare somebody as mentally unstable. Okay, you can't. 5150
right.
they'll be out in 2 days, and usually they don't have the capacity to say, yes, I need help, and they have to self assess. which is ridiculous.
Well, and that's, again, when I talk about the bigger conversations that would better inform everybody about those things, I mean, people do need to have, I mean, again, you can get kind of pedantic and nerdy and go really deep into the weeds, but since everybody is exposed to this issue and everybody seems to have a take on it, those basic questions like, what does the law say and how does this work? Like conversations like that are a good like baseline for us to establish in our outward facing communications, because I think it's important for us to remind people, okay, this is what the law says, this is where we are, because everybody's got their opinions and emotions, but that's, honestly, those are the clouds that keep us from seeing clearly. Like that isn't helping us get to solutions, or it isn't even helping us start, because people do need to understand like what the basics are before, and I don't know that it would change minds or whatever, but at the very least, they know that, okay, this is what we're, these are some of the obstacles that we have, and this is, this is a why, because we all see what and where.
Chris, that's another one of my frequently asked questions that I'm working on. Okay, why isn't anybody doing anything about the person pushing the shopping cart, talking to themselves, walking in the street without pants on, all that kind of stuff? And so I'm working with a mental health, a couple of people involved with mental health. And the fact is, quite a few of those people are being triaged by in the field mental health workers. But guess what? There's not enough mental health facilities to move them to.
Yeah.
So they're giving them medicine. They're in the system. So my group, we're trying to find more board and cares and places for people. So it's that kind of thing. Yeah, it looks like there's some people that are, I'll use the word crazy. I don't like it, that word, but they're getting triaged, but there's no place to take them.
Yeah, and I think, and to circle back to the agenda item, I think that maybe that's something we can start to work on, like a frequently asked questions kind of thing, where we try and get a few, 4 to 6 maybe or so kind of baseline topics, and then we get a relatively concise answer to those things, and then a link or some other direction to further resources. So like what I'm kind of conceptualizing is a like an Instagram post that has 4 or 6 slides on it. So we have an intro, we have the question mark thing, and then like link in bio, we can have it linked on the web page. We can have the links to the resources that further explain these things or whatever, so that at the very least, when these things kick off, when people start to go down the rabbit hole of, well, I saw somebody do this, that there's a place to go besides back and forth on Facebook about it. There's a place where if you have a legitimate interest, if you'd actually like to know more about it, you can do more than trading your opinion. You can actually go look it up.
Chris, let me ask you this, okay? So let's say we decided at a meeting we were going to talk about mental health. Why do we see all these people that it looks like nobody's helping them, okay? And then we explain there's not enough mental health facilities. Okay, all we're doing is informing them. We are not addressing how can we get more mental health facilities. So there's 2 parts to this. Part of it's education, but then are we just frustrating with people saying, oh, well, I guess there's no answer then? Or are we going to try and lead them to ways they could get involved to help find solutions, help find more mental health at different levels? I'm just asking the question, like,
that's the question. I think that, with everything that every time I get curious about something, every time I start digging, there's this sort of inverted pyramid of like, you start out at a street level, piece of information about something. And if you dig, like the next layer up is much broader, and the next layer up from that, and very quickly you are at a gigantic, like, oh, this is why, because, we'll get to the point very quickly where I suspect that our ability as a neighborhood council to offer an opinion would be one of the limiting factors, that we're not supposed to be sounding off on things like, income inequality or, the nature of capitalism or whatever. But the fact is, we are living in the consequences of a winner-take-all system. And one of the issues is like, what happens to the people who lose at this game is something now that, everyone has got to at least acknowledge. And, we all differ on solutions, but I think it's important for us to try, but we are going to get to the point very quickly where if we're going to try to do more than simply, go to the conventional wisdom, and this is the why things can't be better, we may have to risk, having someone say, hey, you guys can't say that. And I would like to do that. I think that one of the things that we should do in terms of outreach is scrape the ceiling of what, our mission statement is. Like, maybe we
Wait,
need to,
you just, Chris, let me interrupt. You just said something. You said why things can't be better. You see, that's not the way I would.
well, but
I would want to message. Wait, hang on. This is why things aren't better, and then ask ourselves, what can we do to make some inroads? We're not going to solve it overnight, but I think people would feel better if we're going to engage them, if there was something they could do instead. Listen, there's days I can't even sleep at night because all I'm doing is, chasing a hamster wheel, not finding solutions. But the more people that know that might be involved with something that can trigger some help, that to me is more fruitful.
Well, I understand, but my point is that I think there's a limited amount upstream that we can go before things get more
Too
controversial.
political?
Well, I mean, and quite honestly, yes, and that's the point is that if you go, and I see all the hands up, but if you go into these things, you very quickly reach the point where you are arguing about, who owns what or how much should, one person be allowed to control. We have a guy who is running for mayor who is a billionaire real estate developer and who wants to help direct city policy on, how these problems get addressed. It's like, to me, that's a glaring and terrifying prospect. But how much as a neighborhood council can we talk about that objectively? Like, you have to come.
I understand, and you've got some candidates for council district and for mayor who are giving you wrong information, and that's all you can do. But I'd like to hear what the rest of the outreach committee has to say.
Go ahead, Kelly.
It's really hard to be PC all the time. Politically correct is, I work in a district that I've been in for 28 years, and the terminology changes all the time. And I'm as a representative for children with autism, we say it's children with autism because they're children first. So, there is that, what I want to see, Lori, and this is something I think that's very imperative, is I want to hear the success stories. I want to hear, every time I drive down Gaffey or as I'm at Cabrillo Beach this weekend for a bonfire, I saw a lot of different homeless people, and they were people with experiencing homelessness, but I know 3 of them have mental health issues. And one of them happened to be a daughter of a friend of mine who has passed away. And so I really, I kind of want to know what's, if, like the woman that Melanie was talking about, was she helped? Is she housed? Is she getting taken care of? Because we don't see the same people all the time. It's not the same people. Every time
Kelly,
I see it.
You're absolutely correct. And most meetings I go to, they always include 2 or 3 success stories.
Because I think that's what people need to realize is that, yes, we have this ongoing thing. It's a countrywide thing. It's not just San Pedro. It's not just Northwest. It's a worldwide epidemic or pandemic or whatever you want to call it. But I want to hear who is being helped with this. I know Redondo Beach was doing those houses and they were requiring them to go in for mental health, and they were doing, how successful is that? Is that working? Is that feasible? Can we do something like that? You're right. We have to have solutions and know what the solutions that have worked, because we could talk about this ad nauseum and not come up with anything new or different until we have what works and what has worked, because it's always, I'm always seeing different people.
Thank you, Kelly. And when you use the Redondo Beach example, they had 3 things. They had homeless court for restorative justice. Okay. Then they had the pallet shelters.
Justice for our district.
Yeah. Well, so they'll expunge somebody's record. If they go to court, they've got misdemeanors. They follow all the directions of getting sober, getting mental health, whatever's assigned to them. They'll clear their records, clear the fines, and then they've been able to get them into the pallet shelters there. And now they're about ready to open later this year their first permanent housing with a Project Home Key. They're turning a hotel into it. Torrance, watch what happened. Torrance is now the judge from the homeless court of Redondo Beach is moving to the Torrance courthouse. And on Wednesday this week, I'm going to the grand ribbon cutting opening of pallet shelters in their parking lot next to the police station, of 40 of them. So they're going to have their own homeless court, and they're going to have So that same kind of success story and modeling, yeah, I'd love to see San Pedro do that.
I think that
Yeah.
pivoting to the success, that's a fantastic observation. I think that is kind of, for me personally, that's the answer to something that we can start emphasizing that doesn't come up first a lot. I think maybe because so many other people are talking about the negative parts of it, maybe we can simply talk about and let people know that at least in individual cases, these things work. And once they know that something exists and it has worked, the question should be then, well, why are we doing it more? So,
Well,
Right.
some of them are, when you say it works, some of them are Band-Aids, but I'll tell you, I got a call at the end of last week, 88-year-old woman living on a park bench or a bus bench. Okay, it was heartbreaking. And so I have access to some client aid funds. We were able to get her into a hotel, and she's going to be the first one going into the Torrance interim housing shelters. Okay,
That's great.
which is great, but it's still not even housing. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like her Band-Aid. But yes, to me, I felt so good that we were able to get her off the street and get her in someplace. But can you even imagine when I have to listen to stories like that? 88 years old.
yeah,
Oh.
that is rough. Alec, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just gonna piggyback off of Kelly's idea because I didn't actually think of that. But the personal story thing is kind of, yeah, we should highlight that because it's more positive. But just thinking as what we should do as a committee, obviously we want to do social media and we want to post on the website. But like I think the main thing is why or what can you do after that? So I think like obviously in the bio we would put like you want to learn more, here's like this website. I would assume Lori has something like all the resources that we could put on there, I'm assuming. And
Yes,
then
when's the last time any of you looked at our resources on our website for homelessness?
not recently.
And
But-
I
Not
need to
since you helped
update.
my friend's friend, that was
Yeah.
really helpful, the list that you gave me. And I gave it to him and he did stay in the parking lot, I think 2 nights, and he was able to get into a place and stuff. And so, yeah, I need
That's
to
beautiful.
do that too.
Awesome. But we can't always release the person's name, but I can talk to Harbor Interfaith and see, what some of the success stories they share with us in
Well-
our meetings. Could I pass it on? But I don't want to put that on social media, Chris.
Well,
Well, you know what? I went through Harbor Interfaith. I was in a situation, and God, my son's 32. He was 8 when it happened. I ended up not having a place to live, and I went into the shelter, and they got me a grant to graduate college and everything. I used to speak on behalf of Harbor Interfaith for a lot of years. So
I didn't know that.
it's dear to my heart. And
I think there's an opportunity here, and I happen to be able to offer some value added, but if and when we're able to find people who are willing to talk about it, I think there's a potential. I mean, we can have graphics, we can have links and whatever. If we can find a person or persons who are willing to talk about that, I would personally be willing to make a feature of it. I mean, we could make a 30-second or 1-minute video if someone is willing to talk on camera about their experience. I think that's, like a direct testimonial is something that's not terribly hard to produce, but that is going to do a lot more, that is the 1,000 words or whatever that's a picture can't do. So in terms of success stories like that, Lori or Kelly, if you know people who are willing to do that, direct them to me. And, that's something I know we can make happen relatively.
There's people with lived experience that have become sort of speakers. And I've heard many of them. I mean, it's unbelievable that the way they've been able to turn their life around. But people with lived experience are now part of almost all the LASA programs and other ones. They have to be at the table. You can't talk about it if you haven't experienced it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Gwen, go ahead.
Hey, well, Lori, you just mentioned it. At the Hank meeting, one of the most memorable moments was when a foster child talked about his experience after aging out of the foster system and all of the support that he had received. But with that, connecting foster children's experience and homelessness, being abandoned and aging out at 18. I've got to honestly say that California has done a lot to add to that. But yes, those speakers that can talk about this would probably might be good to approach those parts of the city infrastructure to get them, because if I'm certain that unless you have an intimate relationship with somebody that you know that wouldn't be wouldn't mind saying something. But I wanted to speak to something about Kelly's idea about the school lunches. Can we not approach and ask what's going on and even make real formal inquiries? Because yes, everybody, you're absolutely right. Food is too expensive, and why it's been discontinued on a large scale, I'm actually very surprised to hear that. I just assumed. But that should
Please
be
call our
investigated.
superintendent.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't have a direct and necessary relationship because it's not a city department. So they're not technically as accountable to us as a city department might be. But in terms of, their presence in the neighborhood, we certainly have engaged.
Can we write a letter to them, Chris? Can our board write a letter?
Well, I think that's
what
probably
I'm asking.
a good first step. Like, I know of enough of the administrators in local district south to know at least to whom these things should be addressed. And how much traction you can get with them at any given moment is dependent on how much pressure they might feel, but making it politically more visible, I think, is a good first step. Like, to let it be known that you're asking these questions, and to let it be known that these policies have changed or whatever, is something that I think you'll be surprised at the number of people who didn't know and would probably, be willing to at least put their attention on that for a short period of time. So it would be worth that to apply some of that pressure. And it would start with our local district superintendent, and go upstream to the board member and to the superintendent as well.
Well, to Lori's point about positive stories, Lori, you probably could get that cycle going with your reports. Start with the positives at the beginning and try to make that a traditional routine, maybe just to start.
Yeah, those reports are hard because in a page or two, I'm just trying to give updates. So I try to just rotate around different topics on each one. But I hear you. If we had a success story in there, I don't know. I think anybody reads my reports anyway. But
well, if it's possible, I'm not asking you to sort of look actively or to recruit, but if you know somebody who has become, a spokesperson or somebody who's willing to talk about that, I'd like to turn that into something. I mean, obviously I'd like to try and make it as relevant to Northwest in particular as possible, but it is a shared San Pedro issue. It's a shared LA city and county issue. So, but if you know of somebody like that, I would simply like to produce a short video where they're talking about that, and to reference specific programs that at the very least are available in Northwest, and raise the awareness of those things.
Well, Chris, I could actually, like Kelly, I could actually volunteer one myself. It was a very brief period of time,
to be
but
honest,
I experienced homelessness.
Well, so I think the perspective of a board member who has lived that, I think, is probably as relevant and as powerful as we can hope to get. So, we should talk about that.
Can I make another suggestion? If we also have more people do that, could we invite them to the actual board meeting as well? Because sometimes we don't have presentations and we do have extra time. So actually, because a lot of people do view those, especially people like Tim McCosker. So I think that could also have a little bit extra steam there.
That's a very good point. Yes, the first, half 30, 45 minutes of the meeting is when you get the most engagement, and that's when those high profile things can land pretty hard. I think that's a good idea. All right, well, so still on, where are we? So we're still technically on agenda item 4, but I think in terms of concepts for homeless outreach materials, we have a couple of pretty good nuggets. And so I think if we can start to, at least in terms of production, if we can come up with an outline of what we might like to see for an FAQ publication, whether it's social media or something that we can turn into, or something that we can kind of have as a resource, and make it boilerplate for some of our other things like the e-blast. Well, we could start on that. And if people know of or are willing to sort of look for and talk to people who might be interested in doing something else for social media with respect to a video or some kind of testimonial to make it relevant to Northwest and kind of give it a street level connection, I would be interested in pursuing that as well.
Yeah, Chris, there's also cleanup efforts that are related to homelessness. I'm going tomorrow morning to Harbor Gateway North to participate in a cleanup and to kind of network with some of the outreach workers. But maybe there's some opportunities in San Pedro. I know George Matthews has his cleanup crew, and Diana Nave is very active with that. But that's another way we could engage Northwest people to be involved.
Yeah, I'll ask Diana about that.
Yeah, that would be great.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have several good kind of basic concepts of things to move forward with, which I think is important because, you know, I have a vision, a sense of what youth and outreach could be doing and should be doing in terms of, you know, it's kind of a buzzwordy term, but it's basically generating content. We need to tell the story of what's happening. It's like it's storytelling essentially, and this is a more topical and documentary version of that. But we have access to all this information. We have access to all these people, and I think for youth and outreach, I think kind of one of our regular functions would be to turn that into something that, you know, people can really chew on, and hopefully, you know, take them somewhere that they weren't before and give them some momentum in terms of their own exploration of these topics. So.
Chris, since you're our social media guru, can you possibly cruise through our meeting agendas, okay, for like planning and land use, safety and sustainability, and if Ford ever has a meeting again, and look to see if they've got some particular topics or presentations that we can promote through social media. Hey, if you want to,
that's a good idea.
You know, because we've asked the committee chairs to do it, right, and they're just not doing it. Yeah. So we could go get it. The thing is, we don't get as much advance notice, but I think a lot of the work is done at the committee level. So that's where people could get engaged.
Like a committee roundup sort of thing. Like if we have some kind of, you know, hot topics or intention getters, we can help direct attention.
I mean, Christina, she lists, you know, here's the, you know, click here for the agenda. Right. And I don't know how many people do, but if you have the time that you could, you know, do and say, hey, they're going to have a presentation on a new low income housing, you know, unit coming up or something like that, and really plug it.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we don't have the best engagement on Instagram, for instance. Like, you know, people will like, sometimes they rarely will comment, but that also copies over to the Facebook page. Is something I can post on the San Pedro page. So when you have a topic like that, whatever it happens to be, that's a good place because people just stop by casually. I think highlighting a particular topic at a particular committee meeting is just, it's good for that topic, but obviously it directs traffic towards that committee. So I think that's a good,
I think a lot of people would have been interested to know that Planning and Land Use did a presentation from the VOA on the Best Western at First and Gaffey, that they're turning that into a veteran project home key. Okay, and so something like that should have been promoted.
Yeah, I think what I'll probably do, especially with Diana, because I know that she's always working on stuff like that anyway, I'm going to reach out and ask that she sort of, like when she's preparing those sorts of things, if she can drop me a couple of bullet points that, you know, let her know that this would be for.
I've been asking for that for years.
Yeah, I mean, she'll call for other things, but you know, it's worth it's worth kind of, you know, raising that flag, and then I can take a look through the monthly calendar. And
Chris, I did not even know they were doing that presentation. And I was just like, before I clicked off for work, I go, oh, let me see what's new on the neighborhood council website. And I go, holy crap, Janice Hahn's going to be there speaking on this thing at First and Gaffey.
Yeah, well,
so I attended, but I didn't even know.
Representative Barragon's chief of staff asked me about that sort of thing for the board meeting, you know, having the representatives speak. So I think that is, again, we can take those kind of, we can kind of spotlight those things that might be of greater general interest, and then sort of promote those, you know, to try and direct traffic back to the website, back to the committee meetings. So I will take a look at the monthly calendar and see if I can pull anything out by myself and highlight it. I'll do that. And I will also in the process reach out to committee chairs and ask them for those things if they already know. So,
That'd be great. And this is how we can get people engaged on a committee level that, maybe will want to join the committee
yeah,
and then down the road, be a board member. This is a great way to get them interested.
yeah, and I think that's a super important aspect of outreach as well, is that we have to, our promoter, we are reaching out to people literally to try and bring them in. And I want to have what we do be recruitment like 24/7, so that hopefully people who see, oh, they're actually really doing something, and if I wanted to, this would be a good place for me to spend my time, kind of stuff. And so we need to tell that story kind of aggressively to make sure that people know that we're serious about it.
Oh, John, didn't you have some people at the movie night who asked about us and you told them about some committees?
I think John might have fallen us. John?
Oh,
We went, we went a little too long.
we bored him to death.
Yeah.
Well, I want you to know that you guys just drove with me all the way from the bottom of Lake Arrowhead to San Pedro. I'm just
Oh,
coming
wow.
up. Yeah, I've been
Right.
talking to you.
Whoa,
Well,
So
good.
thanks for keeping me company. It made the drive much faster.
record time.
Well, we didn't bore him to death because he's clearly still breathing. That's good. But yeah, since he's got issues tomorrow, I'll try and start with them and see what comes out of their meeting and if there's something we can turn into. But I think that's a good idea. That's just, since we already have traffic in our monthly committee meetings anyway, that's a good place for me to go try and scrape some, kind of gems and highlight those to promote the meetings. And which also kind of ties in with the agenda item 5, social media update with branding. I think that, just putting more stuff out there, talking a little bit more specifically about what's happening in the committees is a good first step now. It seems like the Facebook engagement has been the best. Obviously, something as exciting and as fun as the movie got a lot of attention, but I think we can, if we're thoughtful about presentation, if we make things interesting to look at and make the story, compelling, that's a good place for us to branch out quickly into the neighborhood. That's something people stop by. And if you are thoughtful about, present, they'll eat anything if you plate it properly. So we need to be thoughtful about, like, what would get them at least to read the paragraph. And so I'm going to try and put a couple of things together, even experimentally, but maybe starting with what comes out of issues tomorrow, see if I can come up with something that can start some conversations on Facebook and use that. And finally, and does anybody else have any other, I know we kind of covered it, but anything else on social media for now? Yeah, Gwen, go ahead.
Sorry, it was for any public comment that has nothing to do with agenda items. Sorry.
Yeah, well, we did that at the beginning, but well, before we adjourn.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Okay. All right. So, and it's just only a brief point. I meant to reach out, and I noticed that I think they've already started the series. But I was thinking, is anybody here interested in spending any time at Music by the Sea if they let us come set up a table?
I don't mind.
Do it.
I would help do that.
Okay. Yeah, I'll reach out and see, because my understanding is it runs from more or less now through August. And I think that in the past, they just basically let us, it's like until they run out of space in the park. I doubt there'll be a problem, but I'll ask and see if we can stop by and just kind of set up a table.
Yeah, and then we set up, you've got the table set up for like every weekend.
Yeah.
We
It'd be
could do it
nice if we had a flyer on our neighborhood council if we're going to do that.
And can we set it up before like Shakespeare by the Sea? That would be fun.
Well, I can email, today and find out. And again, my understanding is, having given them money and having been president in the past, it probably wouldn't be an issue. I'm envisioning us just putting another table next to tables that are already there. And then what specifically we would be doing in terms, like Lori said, with the materials, would be something we can work on immediately afterward, just once we know that it's, it's a.
I've never worked, I know Lisa Coffey, but I've never worked with her directly.
It's very casual, mostly really it's about being present, having those conversations, answering questions. And then, this is one of those where having something to hand out, and we still have some pens and stuff. This is really just sort of, like a meet and greet in the context of somebody else's event.
Yep. Sign them up.
Make sure you bring
sign
a
'em up so we
water
can get 'em
bowl
in
for the
email.
doggies. Water bowl for the doggies.
Yep.
I got that. I've got
Okay.
it. I got it. I got a whole
Right.
doggy station.
So I will, I'll email and
have a
see,
question.
oh, go ahead.
what are if it could be outlined what our restrictions are, because with all this, we can't face paint, we can't do this, we can't do that, kind of thing. If those kind of structured.
Well, the only thing we do at Music by the Sea is we sit there and let people, engage with the stakeholders, sign them up, get their email so we can put them on our e-newsletter, and just let them know what the Northwest Council does.
Yeah, well, I've done it before, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
know if there were any additional restrictions.
Yeah. And
Well, as far as face painting, you need to find out if there's somebody else already doing face painting. Then
Yeah.
we probably cannot.
right,
Lori,
but
that
that's-
wasn't really actually on the table. Yeah, that
Oh,
was.
okay.
Yeah. I was just.
But I'll find out when I ask about just participating at all.
But Gwen, do you have any flyers on environmental and sustainable things that would be great to have?
I have loads. I have loads of stuff, and there's even more now because of the
drought?
water, the drought. Oh my God, so much.
Yeah.
So much.
Well, and I think, again, it's not like we have any shortage of desperate issues that require us to, whether it's the homelessness or, or COVID or the climate or whatever, there's all of these things now where every week there's going to be something that people, they would be probably thankful to have some extra perspective on. So, this is one that's literally drying up right in front of us. So if and when we have stuff like that, finding the things like this where we can be timely just helps everybody. But I will ask about that stuff this evening and see if I can get an answer. Because again, I think it would just be a matter of us, whoever wants to show up at the table could probably do that.
I'm in. I did have a question actually about another issue.
Sure.
And now I can't. Oh my God, it was important. Now it's out of my head and it was important. Okay.
Oh.
Oh no, now I remember. Okay.
Email.
It's outreach. Sorry. So I don't know if you guys know about cool blocks. I've been trying, but the city of Los Angeles got a $2 million grant, and everybody who signs up can do a block party essentially. But it's a way of meeting your neighbors, starting even at your own block neighborhood watch or whatever. You can turn it into whatever you want, but the idea is that a sustainable community is also a community that knows your neighbors and does things. So, I'm going to be doing it on my block, and some of the things that I'm going to be dealing with is we're right here near a rough spot, and so there's a lot of public safety. My catalytic converter was stolen right out of my car. That's so everybody's pretty worried about it. But things like reducing the water usage, all of these things are stuff that people are interested in and we can unify on, and they're actually giving away money to put on a party. So but I also wanted to be able to inform people about the neighborhood council. I've tried to talk about this before, but it's really a good way of getting people interested even in the neighborhood council as a sidebar.
Well, I think that sounds like a fantastic, summer's here and all that stuff, but it sounds like, I'm sure we could probably find a few people on our board who in their own neighborhoods, like, I live on a block with a T intersection. I'm right down the hill from Weymouth Corners. It's like, if I could find a neighbor or two who might be interested in putting that on and we could get the money for it, if I have an afternoon, I would absolutely, do something like that. And I think that would be, again, something where we could tie in neighborhood council and make people aware of that. I think that's a great idea, and I would like to be able to pursue that. In fact, I'm probably going to agendize talking more about that for next month, and maybe
ask me to participate, and I'll give you some information. But
yeah, send me some information, and I think
it's not going to end. It's not going to end. This is supposed to be an ongoing thing.
Oh, that's great. And
this is Los Angeles was specifically chosen because 200 people signed up, including myself. And it's like a test trial on a really large city scale. So there we are.
Okay, well, I'll see also if I can, I'll bring it up. I'll try and get on the agenda for the executive committee, and maybe we can discuss it at the board level, because I think across Northwest, across all of our board members, there may be it sounds like a great opportunity. And if we get somebody in the Taper area, somebody over here by me, you know what I mean? Like to kind of do one or if you can find, and you can wrap your neighbors into it. If we could get, 2 or 3 of these to happen across Northwest, that would be another kind of a good mini event we could put on with less involvement than we even had for Bogdanovich, but it's still a public,
But it's not
outdoor
budgeted.
thing.
You don't have to do Northwest San Pedro.
Well,
and
that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
using other people's money just makes it even easier. So
Maybe
Yeah.
we could even do it, including the school.
yeah,
Other
I mean,
state-
exactly. I'm sure. I mean, they're the schools are open all year long. So
it's
I think
this thing is kind of rigid. The rule is that you have to meet your neighbors. You can't turn it into a larger community thing. You have to talk about your direct neighbors, the people that are up and down your block. Yeah, I tried to do that with the community garden, because the community garden, those people know each other better than they do their own neighbors, and Cool Blocks wouldn't go for it.
okay.
So-
Well, at least we have a place to start, because I think I know, for instance, there are single family and apartments on my block. I don't know a lot of my neighbors, and I think that but there are a lot of people on our block, and I think it's a great, it's like even a more focused outreach effort for a specific, small area. That sounds good.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Well, let me see. All right, so that brings us to item 7, which is adjournment. But before we adjourn, I think we did I think we generated a lot of things to work on, and it's cool because what I envisage happening is that outreach is one of those things that keeps the neighborhood council, or keeps Northwest, relevant and makes people at least casually familiar with the fact that we exist, so that when we need to do things that are a little more weighty later on, like we're already kind of in the vocabulary. So I think this was a good meeting, and I think there's a lot of valuable stuff coming out of it. So before we go, does anybody else have anything to add? Or oh, and John, I do want to circle back with you about whatever, if you guys have any action items or anything coming out of issues tomorrow, I want to try and use that maybe as a pilot idea, as a spotlight feature for social media to talk, likes to say, we're going to be talking about barking dog tomorrow night or whatever, or we discussed the barking dog, and I'll turn that into a social media post to try and direct traffic towards committee meetings and get more people from communities to kind of check in there, as opposed to just the board meeting. So I'm going to follow up with you to see what you guys talked about, and what might turn into good social media stuff.
Okay.
But does anybody have anything else? All right, well, thanks very much, everyone. We're going to go ahead and adjourn for now, but it sounds like we all have a little chunk of something to work on, and I'll let everybody know what comes out of Music by the Sea, and maybe just email if we get kind of a go ahead, and I'll double check with Melanie that we don't have to do anything else if we're not spending any money. So.
Stop the
Lori,
recording.
I'll forward you what LAUSD has for food distribution. I don't think there's anything on the list, but I'll check.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and so and just in general, if you guys have anything that comes up like that, I can usually turn those things around relatively quickly, and so you can just like text me or email or whatever. And,
Okay.
try and keep an eye out.
All right. I'm gonna go play with my grandson. Love you guys.
That
Bye.
sounds like
Hey,
fun.
take